Right, so there are, it seems, no limits, no restrictions, no barriers whatsoever to Tory MPs, no matter how chronically awful they have been previously, how scandalised, how abhorrent their views, should they wish to defect to Keir Starmer's changed Labour Party. And nothing quite underlines that, quite like admitting the now formerly Tory MP for Dover, Natalie Elphicke. Easily one of the worst examples of a Tory MP that there is, and if you haven't heard of her, or don't know much about her, you'd best be sitting down before we go much further. No ifs, no buts, no questions asked. It seems the party that has been purging the left, that has suspended and kept out the likes of Jeremy Corbyn, Diane Abbott, has no problems letting in a hard right Tory instead. Again and again, Keir Starmer manages to prove that he is no alternative to the Tories, and really nothing has quite rubber-stamped that like this move has. If Labour under Starmer is the rightful home for the likes of Natalie Elphicke now, then it is no home anymore for anybody with a sense of what is right and decent. This is an absolute scumbag move from Starmer for so many reasons, because this is who his Labour now apparently represents and stands for. Right, so Natalie Elphicke, the now former Tory MP for Dover and Deal, defected to Labour this afternoon, just before Prime Minister's questions, giving Starmer opportunity to gloat like mad at Rishi Sunak about it. But if his brains weren't in his boots, he might summon his evidently few brain cells together and realise the untold damage this move ought to do to his changed Labour Party. The moment people actually get wind of who Natalie Elphicke is and what she actually stands for politically, because if these are Labour values now, then run a mile, people. Don't for God's sake cast a vote in their direction. If this is what Starmer welcomes, and therefore by extension must support, why else would he admit Elphicke as a Labour member now after all, if this were not true? Then the last thing we want is to put them in power. Put it this way, even Starmer's social media superfan, Super Tansky, has had a meltdown over this, and she'll usually defend Starmer all day long, and even she is calling the move a big effing error. I'm not sure a centrist dad base will quite be able to contain themselves over that, though. Labour have set themselves up so badly here, though, because not only have they welcomed this awful woman into their ranks, but they've even apparently gone on record as saying Elphicke shares their values and that there are no skeletons in her cupboard. Well, let's go have a look anyway, shall we? We might as well start with why Tansky thinks this is such a massive error, though. For once, I agree with her, and it is in no small part probably what Natalie Elphicke is known best for, that are the circumstances for that. And that is the circumstances of her election, and how it relates to the sexual assault crimes her husband was convicted of. You see, Dover's former MP before Natalie Elphicke was her husband, Charlie Elphicke, who was suspended from the Tory party in 2017 after allegations of sexual assault came out against him. Natalie Elphicke was selected to stand for Dover and Deal going into the 2019 general election as a result, the thinking being, presumably, or it was widely postulated, that she was just keeping Charlie's seat warm for him until he got cleared. But nobody actually knows how she came to be selected for that. She just appears to have been the only candidate put forward. So no option for local Tory members to quiz her or anything like that, it seems. Perhaps it was just a big old stitch-up by the local Conservative Association. But at any rate, in July of that year, the Crown Prosecution Service announced that they were charging Charlie Elphicke with 3 counts of sexual assault relating to 2 women. The following July, he was convicted on all 3 counts and sentenced to 2 years in prison, which he had the brass neck to try and appeal. Failed, but he only served half his sentence anyway. Following his release in 2021, and break out your tiniest violins to hear this, people, he apparently ended up in a rented 1-bedroom flat, unemployed and on universal credit. He and Natalie initially separated and later divorced, but that is skipping on with this story slightly. Because during the legal proceedings, it later emerged that 5 Tory MPs had attempted to subvert justice by trying to influence the judge overseeing Charlie Elphicke's case, in the form of a signed letter by all 5 of these MPs appealing to the judge to not disclose their character statements for Charlie Elphicke. And this all came out when the 5 MPs in question were forced to apologise to the House of Commons or face suspension themselves for what they tried to do. It emerged that Natalie Elphicke was the ringleader of that campaign, with former Minister Theresa Villiers, currently serving Deputy Speaker of the House Sir Roger Gale, Adam Holloway and Bob Stewart being led by her in this stunt. So what you have in Natalie Elphicke then is an MP who led a campaign into trying to influence a judge, who was overseeing a sexual assault court case involving her husband, which involved 3 counts of sexual assault having been brought by the Crown Prosecution Service, now being welcomed into a Labour Party that is supposed to be opposed to everything the Tories are, but which is literally led by a former human rights lawyer, so someone you would imagine would have some respect for the law, but who also himself used to be in charge of the Crown Prosecution Service itself, lest we forget. On this matter alone, Keir Starmer has clearly taken leave of what passes for his senses. For the sake of a gotcha on Rishi Sunak today, springing the defection on him as Elphicke just walked up and sat down behind him to the shocked reactions of the Tory benches, Starmer needn't bother ever mentioning being Director of Public Prosecutions ever again, when he's admitted someone as an MP who tried to unduly influence a court case the then DPP and the then CPS had actually brought against her husband. As an MP, Elphicke has been truly dreadful as well, though, being the MP for Dover, the closest constituency to the continent, and being very right-wing with it. Former Channel 4 journo Michael Crick has taken to Twitter and confessed his puzzlement at Elphicke's move, that she'd joined Labour and not Reform UK, and said that would be her more natural home, and that if he were still a reporter, he would pursue Labour and Elphicke relentlessly over this. A big hint to other journalists there for something you might like to do and try yourselves. But also one of her former colleagues has apparently said they weren't aware of anyone being to the right of Natalie Elphicke. Such is how right-wing she is. And this is the same party of Robert Jenrick and Suella Braverman here. But just like them, and in no small part due to her constituency's location, refugee bashing is a big thing of hers. She took to the comic that masquerades as a newspaper, the Daily Express, last year in a piece that began, "Lefties aren't defending migrants, they're defending a multi-billion-pound criminal empire. Fire bombings, terrorism, violent protests on our streets, unbelievable strain on public services, and genuine fear are the common denominators of people trafficking on my constituents," writes MP for Dover Natalie Elphicke. It's full-on Farageist nonsense, but not only was she prepared to put pen to paper to vent her spleen over small boats, I'll be very interested how that gels with Labour Party values, of course, but she also used a debate on the conduct of Boris Johnson, for whom she was, of course, an enormous fan, and used it to launch an appalling attack on refugees then as well. She doesn't believe there is a migrant crisis at all, you see. They're all just illegal immigrants, as in all of them then, because that's what it sounds like when you listen to her talk on the subject. Natalie Elphicke is the sort of person who would attack Marcus Rashford for his campaigning on child poverty, despite it then coming out that she was second jobbing as a board member for a further 36k a year. She doesn't have a social justice bone in her body. She in no way embodies Labour values, and neither clearly does Keir Starmer, not that that is really news anymore. She, like most Tories, has an ardent dislike of trade unions. When P&O did the dirty on their employees, using fire and rehire to get rid of more expensive British workers in preference of cheaper foreign labour, she tried to join the RMT picket line in her constituency and frankly got told where to go by the people there, because when it came to banning fire and rehire, she of course voted against it in Parliament, didn't she?
You voted for fire and rehire! You voted for fire and rehire! You voted for fire and rehire! Shame on you! 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 Shame on you!
I will be marching for the jobs in Dover, for the people of Dover, and for the disgusting behaviour of P&O and Digwell.
The steel workers, the coal miners, the shipbuilders, everybody.
I am here for the people of Dover. No, you're not. You're here.
Now she's a member of the party formed by the trade unions. I sincerely hope a few of them are considering their Labour Party funding over this, because surely this is a red line, isn't it, guys? But I'll tell you what is also a red line, what is also not in keeping with Labour values, and what is completely backwards and disgusting, and that is voting down abortion rights as well as trade union support. She actually voted to make abortion illegal in Northern Ireland, and now we are supposed to believe she backs the unions and has changed her ways, supports Labour Party values now. This appointment is utterly, gut-wrenchingly disgraceful, and all Keir Starmer can do is post a photo of himself shaking her hand and tweeting out, "Welcome Natalie Elphicke, Labour's new MP for Dover and Deal. I am proud to lead a changed Labour Party that is back in service of working people. In what way is welcoming a Tory into your party back in the service of working people, you deranged balloon? A changed Labour Party? You haven't changed it. You've killed it. There is no Labour Party anymore. How can there be with someone like Natalie Elphicke welcoming it? But not people who like a Green Party tweet, or people who like the Foo Fighters, or not for socialists, not for prescribed protest groups, not for Jeremy Corbyn, not for Diane Abbott, not for all those MPs that have been deselected on spurious, suspicious grounds in favour of right-wing alternatives. A party that now welcomes an anti-abortion, anti-refugee, anti-trade union, anti-child poverty campaigning MP, yet still wants to gaslight us by saying they are anti-discrimination and for working people. It is a sick joke of a party now, an absolute sham. And I can imagine a lot of members will once again be cutting their membership cards up tonight after this. This is just mad. Never before have we as a nation needed to take our votes elsewhere from both main parties because they are as deranged as each other. Because right now it seems if either the Tories or Labour get a majority, things are going to get even worse for all of us. Meanwhile, of course, just a couple of days ago, Keir Starmer was dealing with the fallout of having lost votes already because people have gone off him and see him for the rancid charlatan that he is. But now he was telling us he would be seeking to win those votes back. With appointments like this, you have zero chance of that, sunshine. But entertain yourself with the notion in this video recommendation here. I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.